Meeting. Welcome everyone to Alumni Career Talks, Retail Industry, Fashion, Beauty, and Cosmetics. And you're on mute right now. So if you do have a question, you can chat it into the chat box. How this will work is I have questions prepared for Juliana to kind of speak to some of her experience as well as advice for breaking into the retail industry, fashion and beauty and cosmetics. But again, you can chat any questions that you have for her. So just wanted to give a plug real quick to that Graduate Business Career Services is here to help you. And I don't think I introduced myself. My name is Michelle Levy, and I'm the Assistant Director of Graduate Business Career Services. And I also have my colleague here, Andre Rishi, who just joined us in Graduate Business Career Services. So Andre, if you want to say hello and a welcome.
Yeah, great to be here this evening. I'm new on board, looking to help all of you wonderful students out. So definitely soak up all the information tonight. And if you need some help, make an appointment with me. I should be on Speech Connect soon enough.
Yeah, so, we're here to help you no matter where you're at in your job search, from resume and cover letter, interview, networking, job search strategies. So take advantage of all the programs and resources that we have to help you as current students, as well as 1 year after you graduate. So you're not here to see Andre and I talk. You're here to hear about Juliana Wise and her experience. So I'm going to read Juliana's bio so you guys get a little bit more information about her. So Juliana is a two-time CSULB alumni. She got her BA in sociology and her MBA from Cal State Long Beach. And she's an executive level certified project manager who has spent 11 years in the retail industry. Her experience includes retail operations, marketing, product development, product launches, and experiential event execution. Having worked directly under founder, senior vice president, and currently manage the development of marketing assets for a global beauty brand, which you can see there is Sephora. She has managed projects for fashion, jewelry, beauty, tech, creative, and coaching businesses, and thrives at working cross-functionally to deliver successful projects. Juliana mixes technical project management philosophies with a creative, brand-driven, customer and team-centric approach. She finds joy in caring for the people that count on her and leading the execution of exciting projects. In addition to her career role, Juliana is the Director of Marketing for the Project Management Institute San Francisco Bay Area Chapter's Mentorship Program. She has recently relocated to the Bay Area after spending the last 16 years in Long Beach. So thank you again, Juliana, for being here and for sharing your experience with the students. So I'm gonna stop the share so we all can see each other's faces. If I could do that, okay. So now we're going to go into the questions portion. So again, if you have a question, chat it into the chat box. Andre is going to be monitoring that, and it's going to just kind of let me know when there's a question and you can ask it, Andre. But we're going to get started with, I know I read your bio, but if you could just tell the students a little bit about yourself beyond the bio, but the bio is so extensive, and how you got started your career in fashion and beauty and cosmetics.
I am happy to share. But first I want to say that bio sounded crazy, extensive, amazing. I can't even believe that's myself. And I want to reiterate to everybody on this call that I was sitting exactly where you're sitting. I won't name the number of years ago. So all of it, every little bit of it is possible times 100. You can do it, you will do it, simply because you're showing up for yourselves. So I actually got my start in the industry working for a mom and pop shop in the surf and skate industry. It was a gentleman and his wife owned a company and had a baby, and they didn't want to do it anymore. So they basically said, here you go, here's the operations, here's how to buy, here's how to fulfill orders. They sold through Amazon. And I used that experience to, make myself and brand myself as somebody in the fashion industry on my LinkedIn. From there, I was picked up by somebody working at BCBG. And amazingly enough, from BCBG, my boss's boss went to Forever 21, took me with her to Forever 21. Where'd I go from there? After Forever 21, I went over to Brighton Collectibles as the assistant to the VP of sales. I actually brought that manager with me over to Brighton Collectibles. And then I went to Fashion Nova from there, and I took her with me to Fashion Nova. So, the first thing that I want to really relay heavily is that the best marketing, the best networking that you can do is by simply showing up and doing a good job in whatever it is that you're currently doing. Your work ethic, the connections you make are what's going to take you onto your next level. So make sure in whatever you're doing, you're showing up as the person you're going to show up as if you were in your dream job today, tomorrow, or the next day. So Fashion Nova was definitely the dream job that I wanted. I wanted to help impact the merchandise that was on the shelves. Growing up, I grew up in the Bay Area, and I actually worked for Foot Action at the time. And I saw that there was a department called Retail Operations that sent all of the newsletters down. And I was like, that's the department I want to work in, because they're the ones that affect the stores. And I remember being that awkward, uncomfortable high school kid. I never wore juniors' clothes. I was too big for them. I was too curvy. It didn't work. And I was like, I want to work in the department that can put something on these shelves that'll make me feel comfortable, or other young women feel comfortable. So when I was at Fashion Nova, I helped launch the Curve line, and I made sure that they looked like they had the same shape, they had the same styles that were on the straight sizes, which is industry talk. Like, it's, to me, it's anybody wearing a size, the size they should be wearing. There should be no differentiation. But I wanted to make sure that curvy women could wear whatever they wanted to wear. If you see it on the other sizes, I wanted it to be on the shelf. So definitely a dream job of mine. And I took that experience and helped build up. God, when I started, we didn't have an executive team. We had an HR manager. And when I left, we had executives, an entire C-suite, and realized that I had nothing else, not nothing else. I could always give something back, but my expertise had grown past being the assistant to someone else. And that's when I, took a step back and I was like, what do I love that I'm doing here? What do I not love? And that's kind of where I decided I wanted to pivot into project management. So that's what I'm doing now in the beauty industry at Sephora.
Thank you. That was a really great overview, just to give more insight beyond your bio of your career journey. And yeah, really, really enjoyed the advice of showing up and doing a good job and making those connections. So you mentioned you're in project management at Sephora. Could you tell us a little bit, like, what does that role entail and what does a typical day look like for you in your position?
I'm happy to. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about COVID times as we're sitting here on Zoom. I really wish we could be together in person, but I started the job during COVID, so I don't really know what it'll look like when we're, in the office together. But my role is to develop all of the marketing assets for Sephora collections specifically. So anything that you see now you're going to see it and you're going to think of me. Anything that you see Sephora collection, whether it be on e-com, which is on the website, or Facebook ads, that kind of thing, I help develop. And then anything in the stores, if it's printed and it has Sephora collection on it, I'm a part of the process of putting that together. And part of what I loved from my other roles was being that person that pulls, there's the marketing team, they have their opinion, stores need something specific and we need to make sure it's delivered properly. Finance needs to make sure it makes sense if we're spending the money on it. And I was always that person that kind of pulled it all together. So that's essentially what I'm doing with these assets. We're looking at, okay, we're launching a new product. So that's the goal of the merchandising team. but what does marketing want it to say, and how do we speak to the customer, and will it make sense in stores when you're the person standing there face to face with the client and we have this, marketing piece for them. So what I'm doing is really helping pull all of those opinions together, making sure that everybody has reviews and they can, talk about what makes the most sense for them, but also coming with a plan that makes sense that everybody can work with. And the fun thing is that it's all creative and everybody has a different opinion. So I really do enjoy being that, kind of kink in the wheel that makes it all work.
Yeah, and just if I can interject quickly, we do have a student that asked a quick question. So
Yeah.
Shirley, Ms. Alvarez just wanted to know, are your ads based on the West Coast only, or is it the entire US market?
Good question, Shirley. So I am US and Canada. And Sephora, they actually split up their markets, which was interesting. I was in Greece, and that sounds extra fancy, wasn't I promise? And they have a whole different marketing department. The European team, they have a different client, and they speak to their clients a little bit differently than we do. Canada, sometimes they will use the assets that we produce, and sometimes they need to pivot a little bit differently for the way that they speak to their customer. And then just, along with that question, when I was at Forever 21, they split up all of the Americas. So North America, South America, and Central America is run by one team, and all of the rest of the continent was ran by a different team. So you'll definitely see that a lot in retail. It could be because of like different climates. At Forever 21, we definitely wanted to make sure one team was looking at where it's summer, in some places, and winter in others. So yeah, really good question.
And maybe one more question before Michelle moves on. AJ would like to know, how did you learn your digital marketing skills? Is this something that you took particular classes to learn in regards to how to market via social media? Good
question. Interestingly enough, I don't think I have any digital marketing skills. I'm the cross-functional person. So, and I was usually in my career the right hand too. So at BCBG, I was the right hand to the field retail person. I was the right hand to the salesperson at Brighton, the right hand to the owner at Fashion Nova. So I've learned and picked up on little things. But really along my journey, what I picked up on is the brand and what's consistent through the conversation. And that's like a big thing for myself. I kind of, especially as a project manager, I lean on the expertise of others. So, my marketing team is the one that really understands, this is why the asset has to say this specific thing. But I'm really pulling from their opinion and the creative and like all these different opinions and pulling together what makes sense.
All great questions. And again, if you have more, chat them into the chat box. And I know a lot of these students, they want to work in fashion, they want to work in beauty. And like, what are some of the skill sets or experiences that you think are essential for working in this industry?
Good question. I want to back up a little bit. Is everybody in business here? Or some type of business, marketing, something?
I think the majority of them should be business of some sort.
Got it. So I would say business first. And that's where when I was sitting in your shoes, I was like, I know I want to work in business. I know I want to work in marketing, but I don't care about cars. I don't care about like the stuff at Target. Like I want to work with the pretty stuff. I want to, something that is exciting to me. So if you pull back and you're looking just at business, think about all the things that make any business run and why anybody would hire somebody for their business. But if you want to talk about beauty and fashion, the expertise, the interest, the understanding, I think the biggest thing for any fashion and beauty brand is the brand. So that's why I asked, hopping on here is what brands are you interested in working for? I saw like Patagonia, that has a very specific culture and brand and customer that you're talking to. So when you're sitting in that interview, like, what are the things that make you run? What are your interests and how do you speak to that specific customer? So those are things that, in an interview I'm looking at. But outside of that, it's really about the role and the value you want to bring to the company. I've talked about that I'm in project management, but I'm looking for something different for a project manager, whereas for a buyer, you're looking for something specific, or somebody who's in product development, you want them to have a really strong skill set in whatever area that is. And the cool thing with that is, if you know specifically what you want to do within beauty, maybe don't focus on beauty at first, or focus on getting your foot on the ground on how to become a buyer. Any business needs, all the little pieces that make it work. Maybe you buy oil for, I don't know, something that needs oil to work. Mattel has every single department that any fashion brand has. So if you want to think about how you can get into beauty and maybe you're just not getting those interviews, think about a retail business. Get that, that really strong background of whatever role you want to get into, and then you can pivot into the industry.
And this is going off script a bit, Juliana, but for your Sephora role, did you network your way into that, or did you apply online? And so how did you kind of land that role?
That's a good question. And definitely kind of what I was speaking to before, that pivot of using your experience and the things that you've already done, and how do you talk about that to get into the place that you want to be in the future. So, I talked about, I worked for a company with, it was literally a guy in his garage. And I talked about that experience on LinkedIn, like I was running the Sistine Chapel. So it's thinking about what is the role that I want to have in 5 years, 10 years, next month, whatever it is, and talking about what you're doing right now to get there. I just lost your whole question, but I have a train of thought here. What I did is I looked at project managers all over the place. I looked at LinkedIn. I talked to people who were project managers in any industry, and how they're talking about their experiences, the buzzwords, in their resumes and on their LinkedIn. I pulled up, I probably did way too much, but here we go. I pulled up job descriptions of any job that I might want. And I dropped them all in a Word document and deleted anything I didn't want to do. And then you're left with keywords that you can make sure that are included in your resume, things that you want to make sure you talk about that, you know how to do, or things that you want to learn. Because I was an assistant, for lack of better words, throughout my whole career, it was a lot of pushing and pulling and, nagging people to have them see me as a project manager. Quick story time, I was interviewing for a PM role at Facebook, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, Facebook, I want to work there. They said, we don't want to hire you for a project management job. We have an assistant role for you. I said no. And everybody thought I was crazy. So, if you have a goal, now that's not to say no to every job that you don't want, but that was not a job that would have taken me where I wanted to go, because I had done the assistant stuff for so long. I was like, it's not going to help me get to where I want to go. So you really have to think about your background, where you want to go, who those people are, and ask for a conversation, ask for a call, ask for, hey, I'm thinking about this. What are your thoughts? And making sure that you're showing up on those calls, having your questions ready, doing the follow-ups. I know you guys have heard this 1,000 times, but it's really important. Not everyone's going to say yes. Not everyone's going to be willing to talk to you, but the ones who do are definitely there to provide value. So take those very seriously.
All great advice, and all things, we kind of say to students in terms of look at those keywords, those buzzwords, look at the job descriptions, have conversations. You just never know where they're going to lead you overall. And thinking about the future, kind of, where do you see kind of fashion and the beauty industry? Where do you see that going and developing in the future? What does that look like? So students can kind of be on the cutting edge and kind of know, where is this industry going?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When I joined Fashion Nova, it was like influencer. That was, the marketing piece of it. It was, high volume, getting the cost as low as possible, super fashion forward. And now there's this whole conversation about sustainability and, being eco-conscious, but you're unfortunately in the fashion industry, you're still selling a product. Like if we're being eco-conscious, we're not making more stuff. So I think there's some brands doing some really cool stuff with upcycling, which I would love if every single one of you got into that versus making more stuff. But I also understand because new stuff is cool and pretty. So I think there's a huge skill set there. A lot of companies like the resale is huge. Companies trying to get into that. There's this movement of 50 years ago, people sewed, they fixed a hole in their pants if there was a hole versus throwing it away. So this whole mending thing is kind of getting back, kind of cool. I'm really interested to see what happens with Amazon now. I don't know if you guys saw that they're doing ship to fitting room, which is crazy. Like you can shop on Amazon, they'll ship it to your fitting room, try it on, then there's a screen right there to pick what you want and get your right size and all of that. So there's a lot of cool stuff happening just as far as digitization. And I think, within every single area of the business, buying, finance, all those different areas, there's something interesting happening. So, while it's very important to keep, make sure you're reading Business of Fashion and different things just so that what's happening in the industry, but also whatever lane you want to go in within fashion, keep up with what's happening within that specific profession as well. I can only speak to project management. And the cool thing there is businesses did not used to plan, especially fashion and beauty, so far in advance. So there's a lot of planning happening that didn't happen before. They didn't care about project management because it's just going to happen. It just doesn't just happen. So that's cool. I really appreciate, especially LVMH, Sephora for being companies that plan ahead of time. I'm literally thinking about summer 2024 right now, which is amazing.
And what do you think are the trends for beauty? Where do you see the beauty industry going?
That's a cool question. Embracing imperfections, which I love. There's this cool thing I saw these acne little dot things that are supposed to fix it, but instead of making it skin color, it's a star. So really being proud of what makes you who you are. There's Fenty did so many cool things as far as shade ranges. Brands are doing our foundation comes in 50 shades versus it was 5 before for certain brands. A lot of inclusivity, but it's also more about skincare than it is about covering up and really self-care and making sure that you're taking care of the inner, because that's what brings out the outer. And then just COVID times, it was interesting. We saw our lipstick sales go like this, and then now that masks are going away, they're going back up. So it's very interesting to see the way things are changing and different trends. And I guess Julia Fox has now reinvigorated the eyeliner trend. I don't know, it's crazy.
I have a quick question from AJ. Just wanted to know, do you think that the planning, you were talking a lot about planning and forecasting out, planning ahead, is planning occurring more so because it is a fast fashion environment or not?
Question. It depends on the model of the business. So when I was in fast fashion, they didn't plan around specific styles, which meant that the buy, you could buy and churn and put it in the front of the store. That wasn't what the planning was around. It was more planning website updates and who we're talking to at this moment. So the marketing might be speaking to the boho chic girl or the grunge girl or whatever it is, but they're just pulling together the looks and speaking to that girl. And I don't think fast fashion plans as much as other industries, which is part of the reason why I left, to be honest. It doesn't work for me. Some people love, and I loved it when I was in it, that crazy fast pace, we have an idea, it needs to be up on the website by tomorrow. that works for some people, and it's exciting and it's fun and it's flashy. But I think me being that cross-functional person, and I really care about the brand, at some point it just stops working, because you throw something up on the website, but the stores haven't seen it. So now they're dealing with the customer like, but I see this, and they have no idea it's there. So there's a plus and a minus to all of that. Like, you know, I'm planning for 2024. That means if an idea comes up in 2024, we can't do it until 2026. So there's always, you know, a trade-off with that.
Wow, that's really forward planning there, right? And I know you've mentioned like COVID, how you started in during COVID, you started at Sephora, and just other impacts like the lipstick kind of, and then, you know, the masks going away and kind of it feels. But how has COVID-19 impacted the work that you're doing, and how do you maybe foresee it? You know, who knows when we'll be over it, but you know, what that will look like for you as we possibly transition, you know, out of it, hopefully,
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, the stores only closed when we had to. So, you know, to me, I always think, and I think this is a huge thing to think about as you're interviewing for retail, it's always stores first for me. I'm always thinking about the person that is standing there face to face talking to a client, a customer, however you speak about your end user. So, you know, while I love being able to work from home, I've never even seen the Sephora offices. My heart goes out to the people that are in the stores, in the field. So for them, what changed is they couldn't do testers. So, you know, it's difficult to buy makeup when you can't see if the color works on your skin. So they had to pivot in that, in the way that we were doing things. We actually launched like an e-commerce shade matching thing so that people can go on the computer and match their shades. I don't know how well that worked, but you know, that's something that we did a little bit differently. And then for myself, like even simple things like we had to create, you know, digital folders for how we're sharing things, because we weren't in the office, and I guess they had a server or something that was more centrally based. So we had to change the way that we hold our files. It's hard for me to say because I never worked face to face with any of these people, but you know, when we would launch a product before, like we would have a product meeting, they would come into a conference room and the makeup was there. So, you know, we're playing with it, putting on our skin, seeing how it feels. So the conversation has definitely changed. And we can't do that, but it's working. I mean, Sephora is still standing. I think the speed at which we can work is a lot quicker now. We have, whereas we would plan those meetings as they went, like we have a standing meeting and we know when we're talking about certain things. And I think it's a lot more focused, which is hard for starting with a new business. Like it's hard to bring your personality and who you are to work when you log into a meeting, you get the job done, you hang up. And that's a lot of what networking within beauty and fashion is you want them to know who you are and feel comfortable, because it's a fun product. So you just have to be a little bit more nimble and figure it out what works well for your business.
We had another question going back to planning, because there's a lot of planning out. If you're planning so long in advance, and this is from Martha, she wants to know, if you're planning so far out in advance, how do you jump on current trends and fit these in?
Good question. So with the planning, part of it is we're just putting together the calendar. So we're telling the product development team that if you want to launch a product in January of, let's just say 2023, we need to have the actual product to shoot by this date. So we're planning the photo shoots, we're planning, you know, you don't have to have the actual product in hand to then start thinking about, okay, like we just launched a mascara campaign. So how do we want to talk to this mascara? What is it? What are its benefits and that kind of thing? So we start concepting what those ads will be. So that's like a product launch. So that's what we're planning ahead of time. We do those 4 times a year. But then there's also like the things that we're jumping on, the trends and things that are happening. We're able to do that with our beauty editors. So we're constantly having like conversations and different like things on Instagram and the live talks and the panels and things like that. And then we also have like an organic marketing channel, and they manage like more things that are happening currently in the beauty editors and stuff. So I'm more so on the product side. And then, you know, once they're launched, our team can kind of do like the fun trends and like what's happening in makeup now and like all those different things like the Euphoria makeup we were talking about today. Like we want to do something fun with that. So you can kind of do both, but it's good to plan ahead of time for the things that you know will repetitively happen.
So it sounds like you don't lose that. So if something's trending, you're still able to capture that.
Yeah.
It's our teams to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we're planning for the non-planning.
Right.
Yeah.
And Amy had a question. She says that she works for a startup contract manufacturer, turnkey solution provider, and she wants to know how can we be qualified, or how can she be qualified to be a Sephora collection supplier? Like, how do you source your packaging and contract manufacturer filler?
Good question. So specifically Sephora collection, that all comes out of the Paris branch. So there are product developers that sit in Paris and manage our suppliers. I don't know who they are or how that works specifically, but it wouldn't come out of our specific, what we call as brand managers who kind of own the brand. So if you had like an end product, like let's just use Fenty, for example. If Fenty wanted to sell into Sephora, they would work with a brand manager because they're just grabbing the product and marketing it. Not just, there's a lot more that goes to it. But yeah, I'm not sure about like individual ingredients.
I actually had a side question. You mentioned that you're in project management. I think sometimes in particularly fashion, probably many students, and you're thinking of Sephora, these really trendy beauty companies. Some people don't really think of that. They're thinking more of the marketing and the branding, but they may think of product manager, but not so much project management. So can you maybe speak to, you know, is it easy to access that field? How does one even, you know, what opportunities are there for project management in the fashion industry as a whole?
Good question, because I didn't know it existed. I just knew I wanted to do it. And I think that's kind of why I hinge on looking for companies that do the specific thing that you want to do. I knew I wanted to be a project manager, and I knew where I was at. They moved too fast. They didn't want to plan, which is fair. That's, you know, it worked for that particular business. I think within the fashion industry, project management is becoming embraced a lot more. Specifically, you know, in the creative and production side, but there's also a huge piece. Like, I mean, so many things are becoming digital and e-com and omni, which if you don't know what omni-channel is, that's the connection between stores and retail. Like you really want those two to make sense and to be cohesive so that the client sees one message. So that's your vocab word for the day. But project management in itself started in tech and construction. And I knew I wanted to be a project manager, but I liked pretty things and I didn't care about like coding. So I honestly, I felt like I dreamed this up, and the industry is really embracing it a lot more because they do see that there is a need for planning. And businesses are becoming more like interested in the practice because it saves them money in the end if they're planning ahead of time. So, you know, a lot of companies didn't have it before. I'm hearing from companies like Gap didn't have project management as a practice prior. They're doing it now. Amazon is looking for project managers to open those stores that I talked about, or the fitting rooms. So, you know, there's a lot of different avenues for project management specifically. You know, it doesn't have to be just in tech. It could be in new store openings. It can be in, I don't know, supply chain, product development, like you mentioned, Andre. And that's where you're really developing an actual product, which is kind of cool. Like Sephora collection, we launch new products every quarter. So there are project managers that are literally working on the development of new foundations, concealers, and all that fun stuff. And like your question, Amy, they're the ones that are looking at, I don't know, we need avocado oil or, those kind of things to put into the product. So there's definitely a lot that can be done there.
Yeah, and I had a quick follow-up with that too. Just to not make assumptions, if you can maybe define a little bit what exactly is project management, and also by your title says PMP. There's some people, they may not even really know what is PMP. What is that exactly? And what's the function, your job function of what you do as a project manager?
So a project is defined as something that has a start and an end. So it could be something that is repetitive. If it's a repetitive thing, it goes into a program manager, or for myself, I'm a program manager because I'm managing multiple projects at one time. So a project manager is truly the person that is owning the project from beginning to end. And that can be beginning, meaning I'm defining what is the project, who's on the project, how long do we have for the project, how much money do we have to execute the project. I'm getting, my list of resources as far as who on marketing can help me. Do I have an outside agency that can help me? But at the end of the day, a project manager is truly about two things: mitigating and assessing the risk. So if I'm working on a project and like right now, the reason I'm talking about summer 2024 is because I just heard that we won't have the product to have a photo shoot until it's way too late. We won't even be able to get it on shelves on time. So mitigating, communicating the risk. And I forgot the second one now. I think communications is a big one. It's really about who we're talking to, saying the right things, making sure that if I'm in a meeting with marketing, product development, and they say something that I know creative is making it blue, and they said in this meeting they want it purple, I am responsible for making sure that creative knows what was just said in this meeting that they weren't a part of. So you really are the person that is present in the project the entire time through. And what I always say, I don't want to talk if I'm not saying something that's bringing value. I will sit in the meeting silently in the corner, but I could say one thing and I could save the whole team time and energy. So it's really, knowing what is happening, what you need to know, what you don't know, and just making sure you're keeping everybody in line. A little bit of babysitting too.
Yeah, I know one of our students has a question, but last, if you can just even touch on exactly what's PMP. Some people don't even know what that is. And then Melissa has a question that we'll get to.
Awesome. PMP is a certification. It's the Project Management Professional. I took and passed the test after I left Fashion Nova. And part of the reason I did that is because, like I've said, I was the assistant to the this, the that, but I wanted something that really spoke to my expertise as a project manager. And a lot of people ask about it because it took me a good 3 months of solid studying and taking the test. It's not cheap. You don't have to have it. I am a part of the Project Management Institute chapter here. Many people that go to those meetings do not have it. I think I'm the only one on the Sephora project management team that has it. But, I learned a lot through doing it. You can totally, I think Google has a certificate too that's a lot quicker to get, and you learn a lot about just the fundamentals of running a project. But if you have a specific area of business that you're interested in, what I would encourage you to do is to find those associations or meetings or whatever it is, just to make sure that you're staying, sharp in that industry and what's currently happening.
Yeah, and I'll also say, and I think she's being modest, PMP certification is actually highly respected in the business industry. It's not easy to get. Not to deter you from getting it. It's not necessarily easy. There's hours you have to put in, and it can help you with salary negotiation, moving forward. So that's something to think about. So yeah. So Melissa wanted to know, what has been the biggest challenge as it relates to project management in terms of budget planning, delegating resources, managing diverse teams?
Good question. So I'll stick to the fashion industry because I consulted for a little bit and I did a tech project. Well, I'm going there anyway. And that was hard because I know nothing about tech, but it kind of relates to, I think the biggest challenge is that you're not the expert. Like the question about digital marketing, I'm not the marketing expert. I'm not the creative expert. I'm not the merchandise expert. So in any project, if it's construction or whatever, you're really the person that you're relying on your team. You're relying on them to tell you, this is going to take me 3 days. This is going to take me however long, and for them to educate you on, what they need or what that is. So, when I talked about communication, it's really, and this truly goes for any field that you're in, being a personable person that people feel comfortable talking to, that they feel heard when they're like, hey, I really can't get that to you, instead of, oh God, I needed it yesterday and I told you, which is the truth. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for letting me know, like, what happened, or, well, when can you, and, that kind of thing. It really goes a long way, because at the end of the day, you're going to be working with these people for hopefully years to come. So it's really learning those people skills and being comfortable with being in the unknown. Like right now, I'm wrapping up my first season with Sephora, and I sat here, I sent out an email saying, hey guys, we're starting this project. And I had no idea what I was doing. So, every step of the way you're learning, as you go to execute it, and getting more comfortable with that. And, there's people that I'm working with that have been with Sephora for 8, 9, 10 years, and letting them educate me as we go and say, hey, this is the way we do it, and just remembering or writing that down for the next time.
Great, and all great questions. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit to more like the application process and kind of applying to positions in the beauty and cosmetic and fashion field. And seeing that it's so competitive, a lot of people want to, kind of break into this field, and they're getting a lot of applications. What advice do you have for like standing out during the application process when applying to these beauty companies or these fashion related companies?
First is, making sure that the materials and anything that they can find online about you speak to the role that you're looking for. I don't think that I got any of my roles through applying outside of Sephora. Like I mentioned, my first big role was at BCBG, and the recruiter emailed me. So that was what I had on my LinkedIn. It was what I was talking about in my posts. It was the way I presented myself. I'm sure she Googled me. So, making sure that, even this event today, like how many of you took a picture of the flyer and said, I can't wait to go to this event about the beauty industry? Did anybody? All right, go AJ. So like those little things, like you think that it, you don't, for myself, like you don't want to say, oh God, I'm going to this event to help me learn about something that I don't know yet. But that's good, because you're the one that's here. So, making sure that, everything that you have out there really speaks to who it is that you want to be, because by saying I'm here means that I am this, if you see, like, I mentioned reading Business of Fashion, making sure that hey, this is a really interesting article. Maybe you only read the headline, but sharing that kind of stuff. So you have that, putting it on your LinkedIn, engaging with those people. That's the first step. In the application process, what I would say is reach out to people. If you're thinking about applying for Sephora, I have a ton of people that reach out and say, hey, I found this role. Make sure you're specific. I found this marketing role. I see you're in marketing. Do you have any advice or, opinions, or what do you think about your role in working at Sephora? That's really helpful, finding those people that are in those roles. You can reach out to the recruiter, which is tough sometimes because, there's sometimes a lot of recruiters at really large companies. But also, looking for who's the manager of marketing and who's this. They're not always going to respond, but you never know. They might just see your name and forward it over to the hiring manager. I for myself, I have a recruiting link. Everybody at Sephora does, and I'm happy to share that with any one of you if you see a role that you like. And there's a lot of people out there that are comfortable doing that. I would say, like, Michelle, you're gonna hate me for saying this, but a lot of people say to like update your resume for the specific role. Who has time for that? Like, I think, that thing, like I said, like I went and I looked for like a bunch of different jobs. Like, I love all these jobs, and I'm gonna make sure my resume speaks to the person that I want to be. So yes, you need to make sure that your resume is solid, but at the end I had two. I had one for operational projects, and I had one for creative projects, and I left it at that. But I also would encourage you not to go crazy and apply for every single little tiny role that you think is interesting. Really go for after the ones that you're really interested in. Keep a list, and making sure that you're, staying really active with those roles and following up and making sure that you're really targeted in what you're looking for.
And I want to touch a little bit, because I think the most important part is just reaching out to people, right? Like, and I feel like we say that all the time, and I think there's just a lot of nervousness around that in terms of reaching out. Like, what if they don't respond, or just general nerves. So, do you have any advice for like when reaching out, and if you don't get contacted, and kind of just what your experience was with that?
Yeah. So I'll give you both sides. One, when I was getting into project management or wanted to, like, I reached out to people like, hey, I'm interested in this field. I would love to just hear about your experience, flatter them a little bit. Like, you look like you've had some really great roles, like that kind of thing. Everybody loves to hear that kind of stuff about themselves. But also remember that everybody is busy, and everybody is dealing with Panda Bear and, a lot of things happening in the world right now. So give a grain of salt with that. Feel, comfortable to follow up. Like, hey, you'd say that. I know everyone's really busy. I don't know if you missed this, but I would really love to talk to you. I would probably do it once or twice and kind of leave it alone at that. I also reached out to, when I was at Fashion Nova, we had two project managers who were over the warehouse. And I reached out to them, like, just at work. Hey, I'm curious about how you got into this. I saw on your LinkedIn, you were at Skechers first or whatever it might be. I'd love to hear about your role and how you got to this place. So also don't be afraid. And, you only, know what is appropriate in your workplace, but, don't be afraid to reach out to those people. I am huge on mentorship. So, if you don't have a mentor now, think about somebody who is in a place that you want to be in 10 years and ask them, hey, I would really love for a mentor. You might need to hire one. If you do, make sure you get a reference before you do. But, make sure that you're asking help from those who are 1, 2, 3, 4 years ahead of you, because a lot of people have a lot to offer. It's just that no one's asked.
All great advice. And yeah, I liked how you just really talked about, just acknowledging, hey, I know you're busy, it won't take much time. Or I like also the advice of flattering them, because people love sharing their experience. It's just a matter of, do they have the time or not? And yeah, don't get discouraged if people aren't reaching out back to you. But the more people you talk to, the more conversations, more networking that will happen. So, and so this is kind of along the lines of the application process, but say you get an interview, like, what have you seen that like helps candidates stand out, like to kind of make sure you get that job? Like, what advice do you have for interviewing, specifically in fashion, beauty, cosmetics that you've seen?
Two major things. Say I, not we. I just interviewed somebody, and I couldn't figure out what she had done. She was talking about, what the team has done and what the company's done. And, that's great. And it's definitely, you want to be able to show that you're a team player and you like to work with different people and all of that. But make sure that you are standing on, this happened and then I did this. So, don't be shy, don't be humble. An interview is not a place to be humble. Make sure you're bragging about everything you've done in a humble way. But you really want to, show the things that you've done. Make sure you have your stories. So homework for you, think about 7 times that you loved what you were doing, like whether it be a class project, a job, or whatever it is, and figure out what those stories are and what skills that you can like kind of infuse in those stories. For me, one of my stories is I planned a brand launch party. So, right, I'm already excited because I'm talking about a party. I'm talking about something I love to do. They're getting a feel for my energy and the things that I like to do. But as I'm talking about this party that I planned, they're seeing that I'm connecting. It was a party, but I'm connecting that to the brand. I'm connecting that to the people that attended. And then I cared about the food they were having, because that, they were walking away with an experience, and, the different things that I'm able to infuse in that story. And you can use those to answer questions that they might have, like, tell me about a time you enjoyed your job. Like, you already have like all these things to talk about, and you're not sitting there like, I really like, whatever. So making sure that you're prepared and you have things that you're excited to share. And that way you'll be a little bit less nervous. Don't be afraid to bring your personality to the interview. I know there was a day, and that's probably true in certain industries, but in beauty and fashion, and I think now in a lot of business, people want to get a feel for who you are. I used to straighten my hair for interviews and, not want to come out as this wonderful, beautiful Black woman, but you can do that now. And whatever it is that makes you uniquely who you are, don't feel ashamed to bring that to an interview. And if they don't like it, there will be a place that does.
And I know we talked about this, but like Sephora, you talked about just how great the company culture is. And is there a way for students to kind of test or get a feel for like the company cultures to see? Because we always say like, oh, you want to fit the culture, and it's like, well, what does that mean? How can you tell? I mean, in an interviewing, people are putting on their best foot forward, so like, what are some of your tips for like company culture?
Good question. Yes, people are putting their best foot forward, but you can pay attention to a couple things. When we were doing in person, make sure you come a little bit early and look around. Like, look at the people that are coming into the office. Look at, are they by themselves and sad? Are they walking out, talking to people on their way to lunch and having a good time? Are they on time for the interview? And if they aren't, are they acknowledging that they're not on time and that they, hey, I'm so sorry this happened, but here I am, I'm happy to talk to you. I had a very toxic job that I worked for before, and I could have picked up on it very quickly because the entire time the gentleman was interviewing me, he was on his phone. So, you can pick up on things like that. I always ask in interviews, when they ask you questions, what do you love about your job? You can really, you can get a feel for how long it takes them to think of something, the things that they love about their job, and just get a feel for why they show up every day. But PSA for fashion and beauty, and because these are cool, fun, great industries, there are a lot of uncomfortable cultures out there. And if you find yourself in one, make sure that you're standing up for yourself. Make sure that if it isn't great, that you're reminding yourself of why you're there and what you're getting out of it, and make sure that you have a plan for getting yourself into a better situation if it doesn't change.
Yes. All great advice, because you have to, you want to love what you do, but you want to be in that good company culture too, that's seeing your growth. So, so my final question for you, we've talked about your career path, the industry, applying. So what would be your one piece of advice that you have for students that want to get into this industry and make their mark? What advice would that be you want them to walk away from today?
Know what mark you're trying to make. Stand on it.
Very, very important. And how do you feel like they can do that? Just the exploring and knowing themselves and putting that out there on LinkedIn and, you know, social media and things like that?
Well, kind of like what I alluded at, you know, I had a mission from when I think I must have been 15 working at Finish Line, and I wanted to work in retail operations. I didn't care how I was going to do it. But I knew that that was the team that was going to affect the stores, and I cared about the stores. I cared about the product. And I wanted to get there as quickly as possible. So I was like, if I'm an assistant, I'm going to learn everything and I'm going to get right up there. So that was, you know, my mission. Your mission can change. Mine definitely did. You know, now I've seen the chaos that happens when you don't plan well. And now I want to be that support for all the teams, and putting that forth. So your mission can change and it'll grow as you learn new things and you meet new people and you see, like, you know, the different ways that the business works. But you know, figure it out why it is that you want to do what you want to do. And like I said, like, you might have to take a role at, I mean, Target's fun too, but like, you might have to take a role in a different company that will pivot you into wherever it is you want to go, but keeping that, you know, North Star, but also remembering that wherever you currently are, the best networking you can ever do is doing good work and being a good coworker to the people around you.
Yes, I totally agree. So thank you so much for your time. We are almost at 7 o'clock, but again, I want to give a big thank you to Juliana for sharing her experience, all the information that she shared with you all really good nuggets that I know is inspiring for me. I don't even want to work in fashion, beauty. Well, at one point I did, but I pivoted to education. So all great, you know, advice, and thank you for being available for our students and coming back and, you know, giving back to Cal State Long Beach. We really appreciate your time. In the chat, I did put our evaluation. So if you don't mind clicking on the chat and filling out to give your feedback regarding the program, if there's anything else that you want to see Graduate Business Career Services put on in terms of our alumni career talks. We do these for you to, one, so you be able to network with Juliana, as well as you can hear her experience and learn from it, because that is the best way to kind of learn and grow and kind of enhance in your field overall. So we're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat box. So thank you again for your time, and we really appreciate it. And if anyone else, you know, it's 7 o'clock, so I don't know if anyone else has any final questions, but thank you again for your time, and feel free to fill out that event evaluation. I'll put that back into the chat box.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, I'm happy to stay on if we have this Zoom. But you got to take yourself off mute, and I want to see your smiling faces.
just see the box. We have more people on camera than I feel like we ever have had. So yeah, that is a record for this. So
I so appreciate that. Well, oh, Caitlin, you have a question? Hi there. Oh, thank you for listening. Okay, so you said that you're on the creative side. What are upper level creative positions? Oh, okay, that's a good question. So creative directors, art directors. So right now, like the creative team that puts together all my assets, they, so there's an art assistant, an art director, and then creative director. So like there's some people that work on just the brand or just the assets. And, you know, there's a lot of different things that you can learn as you grow in those fields. But I think art director is really like the head, maybe brand management too. That's a big one. And, you know, making sure that there's brand guidelines and things like that to help make sure that the brand comes through in all of the assets that are created. And all of those are very, very important. Internships. For supply and cosmetics, that's an interesting one. For management or supply, do you mean like supply chain? Where are you at?
Hi. Yeah, maybe something like similar, like supply chain or management, as working for like a cosmetics industry, or yeah, something like that.
I know Sephora has interns. I don't know how you find them. If you want to send me a message on LinkedIn, I can see if we have something. I think there's a specific like start and end date to theirs. But you guys, I think Honest Company is down there, and I know they do a lot of really great things. So I would look into them. And look, there's a website called for B Corps, which is cool. And B Corps are companies that do really great things for the environment. So there's probably a lot of cool things that you can learn there because they're looking for specific, like, I mean, they look at everything, the way that they ship, the products that go into, you know, their products, the packaging, like all those things. They want to do really targeted work to make sure that it all is good for the environment. So that I'm sure they're doing a lot of really great things that you can be a part of. And the website will have companies, there's just lists and lists of companies that are listed as B Corps.
Thank you. Well, thank you all again for joining. We're gonna, again, Juliana said, find her on LinkedIn. So in the spirit of networking, connect with her, message her. But thank you again for joining us. And I'm gonna stop the recording. So